Okay, the final and part 4 of the central nervous system is maintenance of homeostasis. So this is sort of bringing together all the physiological functions. Now, homeostasis, remember, is defined as maintenance of a relatively stable internal environment in face of ever-changing conditions. The homeostatic functions include maintaining fluid and electrolyte and acid-base balance, blood pressure, blood glucose and oxygen concentrations, biological rhythms, and body temperature. The nervous system and the endocrine system are the main systems dedicated to maintaining a homeostasis. They work together, but each has their own mechanisms for performing vital homeostatic regulation. The endocrine system secretes hormones into the blood, which regulates the functions of other cells. The nervous system sends action potentials, which will excite or inhibit target cells. Actions of the endocrine system are typically very slow. They take several hours or even days to have their effect, whereas the actions of the nervous system are generally immediate. We're talking 4 to 6 milliseconds. There are two structures of the central nervous system that are concerned directly with the maintenance of homeostasis. The first is the reticular formation. This controls the functions of many internal organs as well as aspects of behavior. The hypothalamus, this is closely associated anatomically and functionally with the pituitary gland. It reflects the close relationship between these vital systems. The reticular formation and the hypothalamus have many interconnections, which enable them to coordinate many homeostatic functions. The maintenance of vital functions such as keeping your heart pumping, blood pressure maintenance, as well as even digestion of ingested food, this is all largely going to be controlled by the autonomic nervous system, which is our final chapter for ANP1 here. This will regulate all of the body's viscera. Viscera, again, means internal organs. Although the autonomic nervous system is a component of the peripheral nervous system, it is controlled by components of the central nervous system, primarily controlled by the hypothalamus. Although the autonomic nervous system is a component of the peripheral nervous system, it is controlled by components of the central nervous system, mainly the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus receives sensory input from the viscera, components of the limbic system, and the cerebral cortex. This allows the hypothalamus to respond to both normal physiological changes as well as any emotional changes, and that will allow an adjustment of the autonomic nervous system output to maintain homeostasis. Now, if you remember from the onset of the first recording, the autonomic nervous system is going to have two divisions, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is going to be your fight or flight response, but parasympathetic is sort of maintenance. There's no stressors on the body, so you're just sort of maintaining current homeostatic functions. The hypothalamus will maintain homeostasis largely by relaying instructions to the nuclei in reticular formation of the medulla. This will include the following centers. Neurons of the vasopressor center. This is located in the anterior lateral medulla. When stimulated by the hypothalamus, this center will increase the rate and the force of the cardiac contractions and cause blood vessels to narrow, increasing blood pressure. So vasopressor means sort of getting the pressure up there. The hypothalamus maintains homeostasis largely by relaying instruction to the nuclei of the reticular formation medulla, including the following centers. The vasodepressor center. This is located in the inferior and medial to the vasopressor center. This has the opposite effect of the vasopressor center. This will actually decrease the rate and force of the heart contractions and actually cause dilation or opening of the blood vessels. All three effects will decrease blood pressure. Other centers, many nuclei in the reticular formation, will participate in the regulation of the digestive process, as well as in the control of urination. Respiration is one of the few vital functions not under autonomic nervous system control. The rate and depth of breathing are regulated by a group of neurons in the anterior medullary reticular formation. We talked about that a few minutes ago. Several factors influence neuron firing rates. The input from the cerebral cortex, the limbic system, the hypothalamus, and certain sensory receptors, and the nuclei located within the pons. The hypothalamus will regulate body temperature as well. It acts as the body's thermostat. It creates a set point for normal body temperature, which is around 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The input is received from temperature-sensitive neurons located in several places, skin and areas deeper in the body, and from neurons in the hypothalamus itself. The hypothalamus regulates body temperature. When the body temperature increases above set point, a negative feedback loop is initiated whereby certain hypothalamic controls will induce changes that cool the body down. On the contrary, when body temperature decreases below a set point, a different feedback loop is initiated that will conserve heat. Both are examples of feedback loop core principle, where you have these feedback loops such as the negative feedback mechanism here. A fever ensues when the body temperature set point is actually changed. So you're actually changing the thermostat, therefore allowing the body temperature to increase. Sleep and wakefulness. Sleep is defined as a reversible and normal suspension of consciousness, one of the most fundamental homeostatic processes carried out by humans and most other animals. Information is known pertaining to how we sleep, how sleep is regulated, and brain activity during sleep, but why most animals sleep is yet unknown. Physiologically, sleep appears to serve as an energy restoration function, allowing the brain to replenish its glycogen supplies. Sleep is required for survival. Deprivation can cause imbalances in temperature, homeostasis, weight loss, a decrease in cognitive abilities, hallucinations, and even death. Most adults only require 7 to 8 hours of sleep, while infants can require about 17 hours of sleep per night. The circadian rhythms and biological quote-unquote clock for humans allows for circadian rhythm. We spend a period of cycle awake and then the remainder asleep. The rhythm is controlled by the hypothalamus. This causes changes in level of wakefulness in response to day and night cycles. We actually can monitor the brain waves and the stages of sleep. The stages of sleep can be monitored using an EEG, which measures the electrical activity of the brain using the electrodes attached to the skin. Tracings of electrical activity, which is the brain waves, show characteristic patterns during wakefulness and different stages of sleep. Waves will differ in the height, which is the amplitude, and the speed at which they are generated, which is the frequency. The brain waves in the stages of sleep, we have beta waves. These are low amplitude and high frequency. They occur when we are awake and engaged in mental activity. You have stages 1 through 3 sleep are characterized by drowsiness, progressing to moderately deep sleep. Beta waves slow, and theta waves with progressively decreasing frequency will take effect. At state 4 sleep, this is the deepest stage with the characteristic low frequency, high amplitude delta waves. Stages 1 through 4 collectively known as non-REM sleep or non-rapid eye movement sleep. REM sleep, this is rapid eye movement, lasts for about 10 to 15 minutes and occurs after stage 4 sleep. This is known for back and forth eye movements, the stage where most dreaming occurs. REM waves resemble beta waves of wakefulness. So here you can see the waves that we see when we're awake. These are beta waves. Stage 1, drowsiness. Stage 2, slower theta waves. Stage 3, very slow theta waves. Stage 4, delta waves. And then REM sleep as we're coming back out. Consciousness. Altered consciousness can indicate serious problems with brain function. And we have specific definitions. A stupor, this is diminished level of cortical activity, arousable with strong, painful stimuli caused by infarctions, mental illnesses, and brain conditions such as a tumor. A coma, this is unarousable unconsciousness, no purposeful response to any stimulus, even pain. Underlying defect is damage to the reticular activating system or related component. This prohibits normal arousal of the cerebral cortex. Altered consciousness can indicate serious problems. Persistent vegetative state. This is when some patients move from a coma state to a condition where they are awake but unaware because of the damage to the cortex. They also lack voluntary movements. Sleep-wake cycles do occur. Brainstem reflexes are maintained and are intact. That's why you're still able to maintain all of your involuntary functions, even though consciously you're just not there. Brain death, this is the most extreme state of altered consciousness. This is when the EEG shows no activity. Brainstem reflexes are absent. If they were to remove any life-sustaining help, such as a ventilator, the patient would die. Okay. Higher mental functions, cognition. This is a collective term for a diverse group of tasks performed by the association areas of the cerebral cortex. Your cognitive functions include processing and responding to complex external stimuli, recognizing related stimuli, processing internal stimuli, and planning appropriate responses to said stimuli. The cognitive process is responsible for social and moral behavior, intelligent thoughts, problem-solving skills, language, and personality. You have a few areas where we see cognitive function occurring. The parietal association areas, these are responsible for spatial awareness and attention. This allows us to focus on distinct aspects of specific object and recognize position of object in space. Temporal association cortex, this is primarily responsible for recognizing the stimuli, especially complex stimuli such as recognizing that of faces. The prefrontal cortex, this is the largest and most complex of the association cortices. This is responsible for a majority of the cognitive functions that make up a person's character or personality. It gathers information from other association cortices and from other sensory and motor cortices and integrates information to form and create an awareness of self. This allows for planning and execution of behaviors that are appropriate for given circumstances. Cerebral lateralization, this is a phenomenon in which many cognitive functions are unequally represented in the right and left hemispheres. This represents a division of the labor between the hemispheres to maximize a very limited amount of brain space. Following the functions appear to be lateralized, although this is not an absolute. Emotional functions, you'll find this in the left frontal cortex, mostly responsible for positive emotions, while the right cortex, the negative emotions. Your attention span is lateralized into the right parietal cortex, while facial recognition is lateralized in the right temporal cortex. Your language-related recognition is the ability to identify an object with its proper name are lateralized in the left temporal cortex. Language, which is arguably one of the most important cognitive functions of the brain, refers to the ability to comprehend and produce words through speaking, writing, and/or signing, and to assign and recognize symbolic meaning to a word correctly. We have various areas that are responsible for language. Broca's area. This is located in the frontal lobe. It is responsible for the production of language, including planning and ordering of words with the proper grammar and syntax. Broca's area is the area that's responsible for moving the muscles to produce the words. This is an area that tends to be affected by strokes and can affect one's speech. So cognitively, they know what they want to say, they just physically can't say it. Wernicke's area, this is located in the temporal lobe. This is responsible for understanding language and linking word with its correct symbolic meaning. Aphasia, this is a language deficit. This also occurs in stroke patients. This occurs when either of these two critical areas is damaged. And that is it for the central nervous system.